5 being the additional launch map unlocked by completing the Black Ops 1 campaign or typing a secret code into the terminal, being the first map to set the trend for buildables in later games by having 2 trap pieces to repair the traps. Today, we'll be looking at the high round side of 5 and what players do to reach the highest round to their capability. My name is Knife and King and welcome to the second episode of The Breakdown, where I break down world record games and how they were done. Now let's get straight into it. Now before I get into things, I want to explain a few things to help the less knowledgeable players understand more. Most things in a map are made of what's called entities, and you can remove some things like breaking all the windows in 5, which removes 180 entities. Now these entities, they get what's called snapshotted, which you can think of as a screenshot. After a certain amount of these screenshots, game will reset and go back to round 1. Players refer to this as reset. Now, to measure a speed of a strategy, we use what's called SPH. SPH stands for second per horde, which means how many seconds does it take to kill a full horde of 24 zombies. Now, since that's my final point, let's get into the world record and how it was done. Now, the world record is held by Yezi around 229, but one of the amazing things about 5 is the vast amount of strategies you can use. There's 3 instant strats, 5 trap strats, and 2 camping strats, having each its own pros and cons. We will get into that shortly. You start the game off by camping spawn into round 4. You then leave and take the elevator down to the first story of the war room. You camp here for a round and then you move down to the elevator where you will finish the round. You take the elevator down, you buy the Bowie knife, and you finish the round. You then turn on power from here and you use the Pentagon D to your advantage, because it comes every 4 to 5 rounds and gives you a fire sale to help you get a first box game, meaning bow, monkeys, and ray gun from the first box before it moves. I explain why this happens in my drop video, which I will link. After this, you will pack a punch, and you can use the bonfire sale from the Pentagon Thief to pack a punch. But from here, you will have to do what's called setting windows. This is when you move the bottom elevator, or you enter the pack-a-punch room, causing the window spawns in the starting room to change, meaning it changes which ones have the zombie spawns and which ones don't. Players remove the elevators into the window to the right of the Olympia, and the window to the right of that have zombies that don't spawn from these 2 windows. Now back to the different strats you can use to camp. There are 2 different strategies. One is called UNESCO camping, created by UNESCO, where instead of mule kick you would use double tap and camp upstairs using the traps, monkeys, bow, and ray gun to progress through the early rounds. The second strat is camping the labs, which is no carpenters. Again, I explained this in my drop video, which I will link. Mule kick is used so you can have Mustang, Sally's, bow, and ray gun at the same time. Both strategies are around the same SPH and are pushed until you cannot camp anymore, typically because of ammo issues, where you would begin the high round strategy. Back to what I said about the 5 different high round strategies, you have 2.0, 2.5, 3.0, 5.0, and 5.5. With 2.0 being the easiest but slowest, and 5.0 being the hardest but fastest. Now, 2.0 is meaning you kill 2 hordes each trap pull, by running a full horde into the trap each time. 2.0 is where you run 2 hordes through a trap, but after 2 hordes you would stand on one side and kill an extra half a horde. 3.0 is the same thing, except you do this with both traps instead of only one. 5.0 is like 3.0, except you are hitting the traps as soon as it recharges. I will show on screen to give a comparison. 5.0 is inconsistent, so you would switch to a more consistent strategy, typically 2.5, or you could run 3.0 the entire game. For either or, you will run this until round 163, where the zombies' health grows so significant, it goes back to round 1 health, making them weaker. This is known as insta-kill round. Two different strategies for this. There's M16 and stakeout, with stakeout being the fastest. Now what you do is you camp the bottom elevator with a pack-a-punch stakeout. Now regardless of what early round strategy you do, you need double tap. Do these two strategies. You do a mix between trapping and insta-kill rounds until you've reset, leaving you the game in its entirety. Now as I do my best to explain this, I will be interviewing two people today to help explain this more in depth. One being Cryptic Novas, and the other being Jermaine Cubes, to share their knowledge and understanding.
What's up, guys? I am here with Cryptic Novas, which just a brief description of who he is. He's a really good 5 player. Like, I've seen this guy, just his learning process is just amazing, and he knows so much about the map, so I invited him to come talk about it. How you doing, Nova?
Pretty damn good, but yeah.
All right, let's just go ahead and get into the first question. What do you think is the potential of 5, and what needs to happen to achieve that potential?
All right, the potential of 5, I would say it is higher than people expect. I would say the record right now is a 230. Well, some people consider it record, some people don't. Is 237 by UNESCO. I would say at least a 242 to a 243 is possible. What would need to happen to achieve it? I would say number one, well, it depends. There's a lot of theoretical ways you can achieve it, but I would say one of the biggest ways is making 5.0 a lot more consistent than it is right now. Because currently there's a huge problem with 5.0. It's just it's a core part of the strategy. And that's with the speed cola trap in particular. After you kill the first horde and you're going towards the second loop around, if you don't put a board on the barrier and then you go through the trap, it'll make it where too many zombies will spawn in the 2 back windows by the elevator. And then when you go back into that room for the third horde, you're most likely going to die or have to shoot bows. So you have to put a board on that barrier. But the problem is when you put a board on that barrier, sometimes they come too late out of that window. And if that ever happens and they come too late, you might not be able to kill the third horde just because they're coming out too late. Another problem with the strategy, there's a lot of problems. So do you want me to continue this, or do you want me to talk about some other things in terms of potential? All right. Well, another problem is from zombies coming from MPL. If you have late zombies come from MPL when you run 5.0, if you have zombies go to the right side of the trap, you actually can't do 5.0 because you can't kill the third horde. So if that ever happens, you're going to be resorted to running 3.0, which is probably the biggest problems with the map at the moment, I would say. And there's a few other things you could do. Like in Unesco's game, I know he ran a certain version of 2.5. I really don't know what to call it. But it's about 24.5 SPH. And there's another version of 2.5 that you could run where it is 23.5 SPH. But once again, if 5.0 ever becomes consistent, it's 20.5 SPH. If you can ever run that a whole game, I would say easily a 242 to a 243 should be possible.
All right. That's actually a lot higher than I expected. I expected you to say like 240.
I mean, yeah, I would say there's quite a bit of things that you can improve. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is still one of the most impressive games on BO1 in my opinion. And I have nowhere near the skill to do it, probably not even half it. But I'm just saying, in terms of max out potential, I feel like we're not even like within the 50% range.
Well, that's shedding some knowledge. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the second question, which actually ties into what you was just saying. What are some key things you've learned from playing 5?
I have learned a lot of key things. I would say probably the most important key thing is it's better to become good at one thing then become semi-good at a lot of maps. Because if you want to become really good at something, you're going to come to a point where you get stuck. You're just going to be having trouble to beat your PBs, and you're going to have to go through like a sort of learning process. You're going to have to like reforge just how you interpret certain circumstances. It's a lot easier to push PBs if you play a lot of different maps. And because of this, I feel like the learning process can be a lot less refined. So if you become really good at one map, I feel like you can learn other maps faster. Another thing I've definitely learned is every time you play, in my opinion, you should deliberately practice something, otherwise you'll never be better. So what I mean is, when you're just playing the map, instead of just, going through the motions, every time you play, I would try to deliberately practice something. And the way you figure out what you should deliberately practice is by reviewing your downs. So let's say, for instance, on the QR trap, you usually die because you don't stall long enough before the second horde you jump through, you miss some zombies and you die. You notice that. So in the next game, when you get in that circumstance, every time you get around to that second horde, be thinking, imagine yourself what you want to do. Okay, I want to stall right here. I want to stall right here. And just keep picturing it in your head. Because an example that I use a lot is people that drive, they really don't get better at driving. Like, people can drive for 40 years and never get better. If it was just time that was involved in getting better at something, how come they wouldn't be getting better? And I think that's because when you drive, you really don't deliberately practice things. You just kind of go through the motions. I would say those are probably my two biggest takeaways from learning 5, or some things I've learned while playing it.
All right. Wow. Like I said, that ties into what I was saying about like your learning process. It's just I don't know, it inspired me when like you popped up and I started watching you. I was watching you down, and instead of being mad, you was like, you clipped it, and then you'd watch it on stream over and over and over, and you was like, I could have done this better, I could have done this better, and I'll watch you do better the next game and not make that mistake again. And it was just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you just have to take your downs. I would say, what's the way I can put this? Instead of taking you down as negative experiences, try to take it as a learning experience. Because if you take that down, be grateful that this down happened now and not while you're like one round away from record, It's good that it happened now instead of later. It's usually how I try to keep a good mentality.
Yeah, I think that that'll also help from having burnout. When you don't have burnout if you're like constantly learning something, or at least I don't get burned out from things if I'm constantly learning something from them. But when you just kind of plateau, I do.
I feel you. Oh yeah, and that's a good thing to mention for plateaus, because a lot of people feel like they plateau when they really don't. Because, your PB isn't increasing, therefore you're plateauing. That's not necessarily the case. Because let's say 2 weeks ago, you had around 30 average, but you made it to round 70. But this week, your average is 40, and the highest round you got to is only 65. But you might not realize your round average has increased. So I would say it's important to actually track these measures so you don't feel like you get like you're plateauing. I would say it's a good way to increase motivation.
Yeah, motivation is also a big key into playing. At least, I feel like pretty much any game that like has any challenge aspect to it. If you're not motivated to play it, you're not going to play well.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. Because if you're not motivated, you really can't concentrate, I would say.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and go to my third question, which you mentioned this earlier, and I didn't mention this in the video because I did script it before this UMESCO's game happened. But can you please explain what UMESCO's game is and why it's controversial?
Well, I'm not that knowledgeable about this, but I do know that he played with a patch. He basically replace a certain file in the game with another file, so he would have an in-game timer. That's all it is. But you're technically modifying the game. So some people think it's legit, some people don't. The last world record had the same problem. He actually played with a backwards movement speed patch because if you don't know, on PC, if you want to have the same backwards movement speed as you do on console, you have to load dead ops every single time before you play 5. Or you could just play with a patch. And yeah, that causes a lot of controversy. Another controversy is that he does not have full gameplay yet, which, you could say he was God mode, which I wouldn't personally say just because of how credible his reputation is. I think he's personally a top 5 zombies player. So yeah, I can see why people wouldn't think it's legit, but I personally think it's legit.
All right. Now, can you explain what the game is?
Oh yeah, what the game is. In his game, he ran a strategy called 3.0 to round 130. The reason why people stop it at 130 is just because that's what the last record did, and there was numerous ways that you could beat the old record. So people just plain stopped running 3.0 at 130. After 130, he played his version of 2.5. It's basically, with his version of 2.5, usually, trying to think of a way to explain this. I haven't watched it that much, but you kill 2 hordes with the speed cola trap, 2 with the QR trap, and then after you kill the second horde, you wait for them to spawn a bit, and then you run back around to the other side of the trap where near the Olympia is, and it kills an extra half horde. And then you go back to the speed cola trap, and then you get the horde up, and then you turn on the trap. One thing he does that is a little different than most people do, it's a bit slower, but it makes 2.5 more consistent and a lot easier, is when he gets the speed cola after running 2.5, he immediately turns on the trap. That way all the zombies spawning from the MPL window die and he can dip through easier, instead of having to do like a mini horde up when zombies spawn from MPL. Although it is a bit slower, it's a lot more consistent. And he ran 2.5 his entire game, and I don't think I'm missing. Do you want me to explain what 3.0 is?
I showed 3.0, but he was correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the first person to play out a game with running a double tap strat, like early rounds.
Oh yeah, you're right. He is actually the first person to ever play without mule kick. I think you save about 20 minutes of reset time when you play without mule kick. And another advantage of playing with double tap is you have to restart a lot less. Because usually you have to restart for windows if you don't get them set by usually about 30, 35. But if you play with double tap, you don't have to restart to all the way to like 45 to 50, which is a lot more beneficial. It's a lot less restarts. On average, you get a better 50 time, and you can save around 20 minutes of reset. So the only problem with it is it's very hard to gain points. But he managed to, and the reason why you need points is for insta-kill rounds. Because at insta-kill rounds, if you don't have mule kick, you have to trade in the MPL for the stakeout. And on insta-kill rounds, each round that's not an insta, you have to trap and you can't gain points without the MPL. So you need to have about 3 to 400k points saved up before instas. So that was the main problem with the strat. But he managed to get enough points where this wasn't really a problem.
Yeah, because also, I don't think I mentioned this either, but every time you go into the Pack-a-Punch room, it changes your windows. So if you traded in to get the MPL to maintain your points after that insta-kill round, you would have to reset your windows each time, which potentially in Yezi's game, he had I believe it was 40 minutes on his first insta-kill rounds resetting windows that he lost. He lost like a straight 40 minutes because of it.
Mm-hmm. It was just plain RNG, just bad luck.
That plays into a big factor.
Yeah, that's
But
why you never want to get the MPL after you pack a punch the stakeout, because if like every other round you could lose like 30 to 40 minutes, you really don't want to be doing that.
yeah, unless you just have like God tier RNG, then it's just not worth it.
Yeah, then feel free. You do you.
Yeah, dude, if you have that built-in Windows patch installed into your game, then go for it, man.
Go for it, dude. Confirmed Yumesco use Windows patch.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Uh,
Alright,
Let's go
I'm gonna
get
go
that
to my
cloud contents.
I'm gonna go to my final question for you. What are
Alright.
some recent discoveries that can possibly push the map?
Ooh, good question. There is a load of strategies. When I said 2.5, his version is newer, but there's a version that's slightly older, but it was still discovered this year. It's a strat called 2.5 V3. It's a strat that it's a 2.5 strategy that is 100% consistent, meaning you never have to shoot a bow shot if you do it properly. There's zero RNG involved and it's 23.5 SPH. So if you do manage to master 2.5 V3, you could theoretically run 3.0 or 5.0 till you have 1 to 2 bow shots and then just run V3. Because 3.0 has a similar problem where there's some RNG basis in the strategy, so you can't run it the entire game. So if you do V3 once you have 1 to 2 bow shots, you could run 3.0 or 5.0 the entire game. Because the other versions of 2.5 are a bit more inconsistent, in my opinion. And there's a few other things like I know Yumesco hates this term, but people call it Yumesco camping. It's where you'll only want to do this if you ran 3.0 or 5.0 really well. Like, say you have potential darkness run, you have like 10, 11 bow shots still, even though you're running 3.0. You can run it where after you trap the horde at QR trap, you could go back behind the horde or back behind the trap near where the Olympia is. And then you can have all the zombies coming near you. And then it's kind of hard. You do like a, what do you call it? You go counterclockwise. You kind of like start near the door, go counterclockwise. You can shoot the bow through the trap. It makes it where you can kill the second horde a little bit faster. And you can actually get 3 hordes out of the QR strat, which is extremely fast. But I would say those are the main things. I mean, 5.0 has been around for like 1 to 2 years, so you could consider that new. So yeah, that's another new thing that I think will impact 5 a lot further as we discover on how to fix some of the inconsistencies with some of the strat.
Alright, is that it?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Alright, do you have any additional information you'd like to add or say or anything?
I would say if you just want a 240, you could probably run 3.0 just to 130 like he did, and you could just run V3 from there. And if you get decent Windows RNG, decent install RNG, you don't even have to mess with any of this 5.0 or any of this other shit. So I would say, yeah, just do 3.0 to 130 and V3 past that, you could probably get a 240.
Alrighty. Well, Cryptic, I want to thank you so much for coming out and letting me interview you. You definitely added a lot more and actually taught me some. So I think a lot of people will appreciate that. And I know I sure do.
Well, it was fun coming on here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I'm here with Jermaine Cubes. He is a 5 player that I have seen like grow so quickly, and he's a great player and he's so knowledgeable about the map. How you doing, Jermaine?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for that, man. Really appreciate it.
Alright, we're gonna go ahead and hop straight into the questions. Number 1, what do you think is the potential of 5 and what needs to happen to achieve it?
It really does depend on how long you run the fast trap strategies, but I reckon a reasonable round is probably 242, 243. That's probably like the reasonable round to achieve. But like I said, it depends how long you run the fast trap strategies. Like if you run them past instas, yeah, it's definitely achievable.
All right. What are your thoughts on Umesco's game? And another question: what is Umesco's game?
What is Umesco's game? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Are you asking like what I? Yeah, I think it's a very well played game. He played it very good. Like, there's a bit of controversy around it with the missing gameplay and all that, and some people may not think it's believable. I mean, like they might not think it's legit because he did use a patched game. Like he used a patched game file, but like a lot of the games have recently Yezi used a patched game file. So like it really just depends on your personal opinion about that. I personally think it's a legit game, and I consider it the world record as of today. But yeah, I mean, he played a very good game. He managed to pull it out. Played more than 5 hours faster than Yezi to 230, which is really, really insane. But yeah, that's probably my thoughts about it.
All right, a spin-off question of that. What is Umesco's game? Because I didn't go over it in my video because I scripted it beforehand, but what is Umesco's game?
So he reset it on 237, pushing the round by 8 rounds, world record by 8 rounds. I don't know the exact time he stopped playing 3.0, but he played 3.0 to like 130 something, and then for the rest of the game, I think he played just 2.5, and then just got really lucky in the instas.
And he was the first person to play out a game running double tap early rounds.
Yeah, yes, he is the first. I mean, I think they did that back in like the old days, but like, as of recent records, he is the first to play no mill and reset for world record.
All right. Now this one's pretty deep. Going deeply in your thoughts, what do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind while playing a 5-game out?
Yeah. There's a lot. It's a very challenging map, especially if you want to play it fast. The main things to keep in mind is just don't be afraid to shoot the bow when you feel you're gonna need to. Like, because I've made that mistake a lot of times where I, tried to just skim past the zombies and not shoot a bow shot. But you always end up having to shoot a bow shot, and that's probably the most important one. And really just managing your ammo, I guess. So like that comes into part of that. So like being aware of like how many shots you're using per round, and like if you get a 5-rounder, you got to be careful of running out of bow ammo. In that case, you would have to run like a safer strat. So there's a lot of decision making, like and you can go into like each trap strategy and like how you decide when to use it, but it all depends on many factors like your possible dock rounds and how much bow ammo you got.
All right, so you're saying the most important thing to keep in mind is your ammo consumption.
Yeah, like don't be afraid to shoot the bow shot,
around that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That kind of ties into my next one, which you kind of said. When using your multiple variants of the trap strategy, so 2.0, 2.5, 3.0,
Yeah.
5.0, and something I didn't go over in my video is the variants of each strat. So you got like 2.5 v 3 or like Umesco's
V3, yeah.
How do you determine which variant should you use?
Most sort of significant factor is how much bow ammo. Like if you got no bow ammo, you're probably gonna have to run 2.5, like the safest strat pretty much, or even 2.0 if you don't feel comfortable. But yeah, like it just all depends on like your possible dock rounds. Like say if you got like you don't have dock until like another couple or like 2 or 3 rounds, then you gotta just sort of be aware of like your bow ammo. And in some scenarios, if you're running like 3.0 and you have to like jump out of it like before, like you can't finish the whole like route of 3.0, you might have to like hold them up again and then like just but it all there's not really too many factors that depend on it. Obviously when you get to like insta kill rounds, when the rounds are a lot longer, you're gonna be, risking a lot more bow shots to use. So, it all depends on how many downs you got. Like, say if you got no more revives left, you probably wouldn't want to be using running like the 3.0 strats or 5.0 strat. Like, yeah. But yeah, that's probably the main factors that determine which strategy to
So
use.
you're down and your ammo, and then you
Yeah.
mentioned your dock rounds, right?
Yeah, say if you got like a guaranteed dock next round, it depends on those factors.
All right. So that wraps up all my questions. Do you have anything you would like to add to it?
So if I know a lot of people, there's a bit of like sort of argument between which is better, no mule or with mule. It all comes down to your personal preference. They're both very similar times. Like me and your Mesco get very similar times with and without mule. But yeah, it just all depends on your personal preference. It can be a bit more harder to get setups with mule, I would say, because you can run out of ammo quicker because like you don't have double tap and stuff. But yeah, that's probably the only sort of thing I want to add.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming out, and
It's alright.
that wraps it up. Okay, what up, everyone? Sniping here. I just want to say thank you for watching the entire video. If you liked it, and you want more of them, make sure to like, subscribe. Only if you liked it. If you got some criticism for me, leave it down in the comments. I would love to continue this series on and make each video better than the last one. Also want to say thank everyone for 200 subscribers on YouTube. I really appreciate it. And we're almost at 200 followers on Twitch. So if you feel so inclined to, I would appreciate a follow or a subscription. To the next one, guys. Peace.